Welcome to Parev TV. It is Tuesday, November the 10th, and this is the date Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed on a full ceasefire and cessation of all military activities. We are joined by community activist Dr. Andranik Kasparian and attorney Vartan Asatrian in hopes of clarifying and understanding recent developments in Armenia. Last night, we heard that Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed to a Moscow-brokered truce in Nagorno-Karabakh. Andranik, let's get moving. Can you help us understand what's been agreed and where do we stand now?
Well, thank you, Vartan. I'm still trying to understand it all myself because at this stage we have to rely on, of course, official sources of information, but also mine the unofficial sources to fill out the picture. If you've heard Prime Minister Pashinyan, he has justified this agreement, saying that he's doing it to avoid further bloodshed. And indeed, as we've seen over the last 6 weeks, the death toll and the casualties have been mounting, and the toll of the war has been severe. If you look at the specific provisions of this agreement, this is not anything that we could have imagined. And again, I think most of this is the result of the game-changing intervention of Turkey into the equation. I cannot imagine an agreement, anything like this, having been brokered in prior years. But it is clear from the agreement that Turkey was pushing hard, not just on Karabakh, but on other fronts. We see that the ceasefire essentially stabilizes the status quo, where Karabakh has lost several regions of the NKR and territorially has lost more than 25% of the territory, if not more. Of course, the stabilizing factor is that Russian peacekeepers have entered en masse, and we all felt that a stable ceasefire would have to be guaranteed by peacekeepers. And so the Russian peacekeepers are there now. Russia had advocated for peacekeepers earlier, but had met with resistance from Azerbaijan and Turkey. And it seems that the Russians overcame that resistance by pressuring Armenia to make additional concessions. I think the biggest concession, of course, is that land territories have been essentially ceded without any guarantees of Karabakh's political status. This is the single most important issue for Armenians, is that Karabakh's political status must be guaranteed. And it has not been. That process of organizing a referendum and return of displaced persons is going to take months, if not years, and then there will presumably be a referendum, but that has not been explicitly outlined. Alongside of this, of course, there are other provisions that became linked to this agreement. It seems that Turkey was insistent on linking two corridors. That is the Lachin corridor and the corridor extending from Nakhichevan into Azerbaijan, or Azerbaijan proper. It is still unclear to me exactly the nature of that humanitarian corridor or transport corridor that will link Nakhichevan to Azerbaijan. Is it an encroachment on Armenian sovereignty, or isn't it? It appears that it is. But evidently Turkey was able to pressure Russia into a quid pro quo, where they got this corridor in return for the Lachin corridor connecting Artsakh to Armenia. As you see, there's a timetable for withdrawal of Armenian forces from the remaining areas. Lachin, Kelpachar, etc., and that all should happen within the next 10 days. This is obviously a very harmful agreement for Armenia and Artsakh, especially Artsakh. It really curtails the sovereignty of our country. And I dare say that the population of Artsakh is not going to be feeling especially secure, especially the 70,000 plus people that have left the country and are now residing in Armenia. This is a very difficult pill to swallow. I, for one, have not swallowed it yet, but I think many of us are still digesting the news. I have more to say, but maybe I can stop here for now.
Antranik, you mentioned in your opening remarks the speech of Nikol Pashinyan, but you also not failed, but maybe you should also comment about the many ways he also criticized the previous governments who did not prepare for this situation. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there's much to be said there. I'm a little bit reluctant to get into it because the dust is still settling. This is not the time for finger pointing or blame game, even though the prime minister did some of that. There will be a time very soon to construct a balance sheet. Some of what Pashinyan says I agree with. Armenia squandered 25 years of ceasefire and independence, during which we could have bolstered our armed forces. We could have developed many capabilities that we didn't have. But unfortunately, due to Armenia's internal domestic situation, the establishment of oligarchy and social injustice, I think, really diverted us, really sapped our strength. I've said this before, that Armenia cannot just be any old country, any sort of mediocre nation state. We have to excel at everything. We have to be strong on defense and security, and also strong on economic performance, and also strong on social justice and democratic governance. I don't believe in this either or of people saying, well, Robert Kocharyan was strong on Artsakh. We know he was corrupt, but he was strong on Artsakh. No, we can't tolerate corruption. That corruption led to hundreds of millions of dollars being stolen from the country, which could have been reinvested in better things, more gainful pursuits. But I think I've already said too much, Vartan. I really think most of this post-morteming has to happen later. The dust is still settling, and we have to still navigate our way through the current predicament.
Vartan Asatrian, thank you for joining us too, and patiently waiting on the sidelines, listening to Antranik. Last night we watched the chaotic scenes that erupted inside Armenia's parliament, denouncing the country's leadership. In fact, we kept hearing that Parliament Speaker Arab Mirzoyan was beaten and taken to a hospital. How expected were these reactions, and what is the situation now?
Well, unfortunately, some of it was expected. I was extremely unhappy about what I saw because at the same time I was looking simultaneously at some of the statements by some of the troops that were watching it as well, and I saw some of their feedback. They were so upset, and I'm saying that mildly. They didn't like what they saw because they felt like they were giving Turkey and Azerbaijan another reason to celebrate. You never want to show that there's an unhinging of the country, and the parliament is a symbol of the country. And Armenia's parliament has actually had a prior horrible, violent event there as well. So I think that I wish that we could engage in a lot more discourse. I never want to censor anybody. Everybody has a right to be angry, to have a right to express their feelings, but not in that extent. I mean, the world is watching. Unfortunately, now they're watching. Before they weren't watching. And I think it's a very, very sensitive time. Like Andrei said, we should really be focusing on other things. That type of outrage and lack of discipline is very disrespectful, I think, to the troops who are right now injured, hurt, probably lost a family member, and they're also completely traumatized about what they had witnessed. I mean, as far as, I mean, I'm not an armchair general or anything, but the amount of military advance that they had to deal with, you know, David versus Goliath was the tone. David had it easy versus Goliath compared to what these warriors had to deal with. So I think there's got to be a little bit of a time. Yeah, there will be a post-mortem, I think. I agree with Andrei a lot. And I did hear Pashinyan say things like that, but there'll be a time for that. But right now, I really worry about the soldiers. I wish that some of the people in Yerevan could withhold from some extremely damaging comments. You know, the word traitor was being thrown around. We don't know what was going on in these sort of negotiations. We don't know what kind of ultimatums were given. And I like to think that that could be for another program at another time when we do get more information. But right now, I think we should be worrying more about those troops and the health of those troops and some humanitarian aid as far as their well-being is concerned, definitely in the immediate and intermediate times. So the long and short of it is I wish they wouldn't engage in that kind of activity. Armenia can't, we're not a banana republic. We have an enormous amount of history. We can't engage in that kind of sloppiness. I mean, I've always said to you on prior programs, the world is watching. That's something that they would celebrate about. We don't want to give them any more reasons to celebrate. Quite frankly, they have learned that our troops and our people, our fighters, our warriors, are second to none, I would say, on the planet. What they were dealing with is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So right now, maybe we should shift our focus on them and helping them out, because I know they need medication, medicines, humanitarian aid, and also, you know, helping out the refugees as well. That's going to be a serious problem. I just think it's a pause. People throwing the word surrender and things like that. It's a little premature to say those things. I think right now, maybe it was, we'll find out later on, something that needed to be done. We just don't know the details. So I would ask some of my Armenian compatriots and to hold off, throwing off some very dangerous words like traitor and things like that, or sellout. And I've been hearing that. But before you say those things, maybe we should gather some facts and not even say it right now and worry more about the soldiers. So that's my comment on that.
Antranik, you know, we have heard a lot about fake news over the past 44 days. At one point, there were numerous reports from respectable media sources that the deployment of Turkish servicemen in Nagorno-Karabakh has been agreed. And yet, the latest remarks by Russian spokesman Peskov saying that deployment of Turkish servicemen is not agreed upon. There has not been a talk on creation of a monitoring center in Azerbaijan territory. What is your take of Turkish servicemen being deployed in Karabakh? Do we have it or not, and what does it mean?
Actually, some of the wording in the agreement was vague, and this is one of the vague parts. It's not clear whether Turkey has direct observation role or not. They certainly are seeking it. But my sense is that that is not a done deal. That is still being negotiated. And it was somehow thrown in there without closure. Clearly, we want Turkey as far away from the Caucasus and as far away from Artsakh as possible. And presumably now having Russian peacekeepers will help to accomplish that. Mm-hmm. But Vartan, I'd like to return to a point that Vartan Asataryan was making regarding the current tone of public discourse. It's true, a lot of people are feeling hurt, yours truly included. Feelings of anger, even betrayal. But yes, we do need to be careful about mudslinging and ad hominem attacks, because this could easily spill over into civil unrest in Armenia, and that bloodshed in the streets serves no one. Having said that, objectively, this is a very bad agreement. It's a very bad deal for Armenia. And I believe while there's still time, we have to think of ways, of course, not just we, especially those who have influence in Armenia, have to think of ways to step back from this agreement if that's possible. I think most of us are shocked and treating this as a done deal. But let me remind you that in the past, Levon Bedrosian, for example, signed a number of agreements that he was later forced to back away from because the Artsakh army, the Artsakh political authorities refused to go along. I'm not looking for Pashinyan's resignation in order to punish him or in order to say, I told you so. But I could imagine Pashinyan resigning for the betterment of this deal, of this negotiating deal. I don't believe in bloodshed on the streets, but I think that nonviolent pressure on Pashinyan is certainly called for. Pressuring him to account for himself, pressuring him in such a way that he can step back from this agreement if there are any loopholes. And if he cannot, then to step aside and let someone more gosht, someone more hardline play that role. I think all of these options have to be explored. They're on the table. I don't view this as over. We shouldn't view this as over. Yeah.
Antranik, only this morning, President Armen Sarkisian released a statement saying that he knew nothing about the conditions of ending the war. He knew nothing about it. Nobody consulted him. He learned it from the press. What is your response to this statement?
Well, I think, first of all, that's not good governance. It's understandable that Nikol Pashinyan has his trusted associates and inner circle. Everyone does.
Yep.
But when you have someone like Armen Sarkisian as president of the republic, a man with fantastic credentials as a diplomat, with enormous contacts, one of the best Rolodexes in the country, it behooves you to involve him in the process in a close way, not at arm's length. And I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, frankly, that he was not more closely involved. His savvy could have helped in some small way, if not in a large way. And I know that Armen Sarkisian, is now engaged in a certain amount of shuttle diplomacy, talking to different ambassadors and different diplomats to see if there's anything that can be done further regarding this agreement.
Vartan, one of the tweets of Aliyev reads the following. He says, I'm fortunate to have fulfilled my father's will. We liberated Shushi. This is a great victory. Today, may the soul of our national leader and our martyrs be praised. Obviously they're celebrating, but how do you feel? I feel so proud of the Armenian soldiers. I really watched the war over the past 44 days. And the way the Armenian side handled itself makes me full of pride, really fills me with pride. And obviously there were many innocent people who died, many mothers crying over their sons. This is part of war, but what is your overall reaction? There must be something hopeful you can
Vartan, as you know, I represent, actually my full-time job is I'm a criminal defense lawyer, right? I represent federal criminals of large orders all over the world. One thing that they say in the prisons sometimes, that the one that speaks the loudest is the biggest coward. Aliyev came off here talking a lot, but he had these fists in the air, iron fists, and to me that's always a tip-off that there's something very cowardly about that individual. This is not about his father, this is not about him. Quite frankly, his father is Erdogan. That's his stepfather. and Erdogan was running the show. Aliyev is actually diminished as a human being. He's not a leader. He looks like a caricature out of a Borat movie. He is really not the one that should be pounding his chest at this point. The reality is his people were used to achieve an agenda that was really orchestrated, I believe, in Ankara and by Erdogan, who's also another delusional individual. We'll get to him soon, but Aliyev should not have any premature celebrations. And quite frankly, the Armenian troops were by far elite, brave, and look what they had to deal with. I mean, we'll address to that as well. But there's one thing I do want to say, and I do agree with Andranik about this. This is not over. This is a pause. Armenia really does need to regroup. They need to have refocused themselves. But one thing that I've been hearing just from pedestrians or the average person on the street, self-reliance. That's the operative word right now. The whole world was watching. Some people were giving lip service. Some people were giving us all sorts of symbolic things. But the reality is, if our warriors there did not show the degree of tenacity and toughness, they didn't think this was going to last 4 weeks, in my opinion. When they drew up the plans, they thought it was 1 or 2 weeks tops. So what I'm saying is, it's not over, because what they do know internally, and this is, if you want to be a fly on the wall, they can't believe the resolve, the intelligence of the Armenian military, how, they were doing the best they could with whatever they could, and they lasted for a long time. So I'm not impressed with Aliyev's fist punching or whatever. He's really showed that he's a diminished figure. He's not the one. Everybody knows he's not calling the shots. And Andranik said it before. It's really, I believe, I don't want to put words in his mouth, I think Ankara has commandeered the country. And after they're done with him, they'll move on to the next. And also, there's a huge stain about bringing jihadists to fight the war for you. What does it say about your own soldiers? One, not much. And two, why is the world community silent about the fact that you're using ISIS, jihadists that beheads individuals, as weaponized these people, but you don't get enough outcry? So I think the word self-reliance is something that's going to be very operative in the Armenian lexicon. We can't really, I didn't see anyone come to our assistance at all. Did you?
No.
Andranik, let me go back to the main question I have, or had for the past 24 hours. What is left of Karabakh in Armenian hands, and what can you tell us about the corridor that is to connect Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan?
I'll be quite frank, I still have not wrapped my brain around the corridor. Of course, the worst case scenario is that the corridor actually becomes Azerbaijani sovereign soil. I don't think that will happen. But what I worry about is a false equivalency being created between the Lachin corridor and the Nakhichevan corridor. I think Turkey will insist that if the Nakhichevan corridor is not part of Armenian sovereign soil, then the Lachin corridor also will not be part of Armenian Artsakh sovereign soil, which is a huge blow. We need to have sovereignty over that territory. Even guarantees of Russian peacekeeping troops is, I think, small consolation if ultimately we don't have sovereignty over it. So I can't give you a definitive answer on the corridor from Nakhichevan yet. With the Lachin corridor, it seems that again, this is not hard fast, but the talk is about the Lachin corridor being a permanent connective link, but it's going to be just a corridor, maybe 5 kilometers wide. The old Kashatagh province, that is Lachin extended, right now seems to be coming off the table, which is very unfortunate, not just for the population, but for the historical pedigree. If you've been to the Lachin corridor and areas north of it, especially, this is a cradle of Armenian Christianity. I mean, this is an incredibly bitter pill to swallow. I mean, some of our oldest monasteries and cemeteries and old villages are found in those areas. To think now that because of Stalin's redistricting, this is considered to be Azerbaijan is it's very tough to swallow. But again, Vartan, I don't know how much post-morteming I want to be doing right now. I think we're still in it. You know, and if I may, one other comment is that we have to focus on hard power more and more. We can't be looking to world public opinion to bolster us. I mean, of course, PR work, media work matters, but we've seen again that we have no friends. And in this kind of tough neighborhood, that means that we have to rely on ourselves and develop our capabilities, militarily and otherwise.
Vartan, can we do it without friends?
I think we have friends. It's called the diaspora. The diaspora is our greatest friends out there. Can we do without friends? Of course we can. And it's amazing. The more powerful you are, the more hard power, as Andrenik's talking about, the more friends you'll start to actually get. But no one respects you. Let's go back to the whole prison metaphor. If you're in prison, in a maximum security prison, and you don't have a weapon, and people know you don't have a weapon, you don't have a knife, you don't have anything, you don't have connections to the guards, you're a target. And I felt like Armenia at one point was that guy in the cell that was a nice guy but didn't have any weapons. And quite frankly, we got a little Hollywood, and Armenia needs not to get any more Hollywood. Andrei talks, it's a tough neighborhood. It's Brownsville in 1979. It's dangerous. And look what Georgia did to us. I mean, talk about no friends. We even thought some of the neutral individuals, they were absolutely despicable, the way Georgia behaved toward us. And if we think that we have friends out there, what do we offer our friends? If they think they're expendable, this whole Christian nation stuff, I believe in it. I love it. The whole world don't even know about it. A lot of people don't even care about it. Armenia is going to have to make sure that they have weapons, they have money, they have the diasporan individuals in power. Then we may have what's called fair-weathered friends, but we literally had no one step in for us. This could have been, you know, we were talking about existential threats to Armenia. This really was a premeditated genocide. It just, they botched it. But we can't allow this to happen anymore. We can't rely on 1980s weaponry against 2020 drones. It's not fair to our people. And I do think hard power is important. And I do believe that we should have economic power. And as far as our leadership is concerned, one of those soldiers out there fighting for us would be a great leader in the future, I think. Those are the ones that really feel it on their skin. I hope I answered your question. Well, I even forgot. What was the question? I forgot. Forgive me.
You can do it without friends.
Oh, no. Talking by someone that has no friends to me. You need to be self-reliant, and I think Andrenik said it right. But it needs to be done with money, and quite frankly, the diaspora. So why isn't diaspora our greatest friend? Armenians from America, Armenians from Argentina, France, all over. Those are our friends. But if you're not Armenian, I think, and I don't want to sound a little too much, but the reality is you could feel sorry for someone, but if you do nothing for them, what are you really doing? And a lot of people just felt sorry for us. I'm tired of being the victim. I don't want to be the victim anymore. I really want to be the guy in the prison cell with at least a weapon to protect ourselves. We got caught without one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Andrenik, forgive me. I digress.
No, I was just going to add, we don't need any more avarayers. We don't need any more moral victories.
No.
We need real victories.
Andrenik, հայերենով գուզեմ փակել այս հարցազրույցը։ Երկու երեք օր առաջ երբ որոշեցինք հարցազրույց ունենալ այսօր, նյութերը բոլորովին դարբեր էին։ Դա լավ գիտես։ Եվ վերջի 24 ժամվա ընթացքին բոլոր մեր կյանքը փոխվեցավ, հայ ընտանիքի կյանքը փոխվեցավ։ Գսեն օրերը հղի են, եւ գսեն այսօր քիչ առաջ գսի Փաշինյանի խոսքը լսեցիր, Արայիկ Հարությունյանի խոսքը լսեցիր, Բեապարի խոսքը լսեցիր եւ այլն։ Անտրանիկ այդ խոսք քեզի դրվի խոսելու մեր ժողովրդին, ինչը կարևոր գեդը շեշտել այսօր, երբ վաղվա մասին նաև կմտածենք։
Մարդահրավերները շատ են, կարծեմ նախ եւ առաջ մեր ազգային միասնականությունը քերխնդիր է։ Այսինքն ցախողության պատճառով պետք չէ բարակդվել։ Եվ ասիգա ցախող պայմանակիր է, համացանակիրը ցախող է, բայց ադի դեղի պետք չէ դա ներքին ասենք անհանգստության կամ անհանդուրժողական մոտեցումներու։ Եթե փոխելու դեղ ունենք եւ կարծեմ ունենք, պետք է ճիշտ ցևով, ճիշտ եղանակով այդ փողոքի ցայնը հասցնենք մեր վարչապետին, մեր վերնախավին, որբեսի իրեն գարենան ադի կործածել որբես տրամակլուխ, որբեսի աս անթունտի եզրեն ետ կանգնենք։ Իմ գարձիկովս ասի բادرազմի եւս մի փուլ էր, բայց բادرազմը շարունակելու է տարբեր ցևերով եւ գրվաթաշտի վրա եւ information technology-ով եւ շատ մտարբեր ոլորտներում մեջ, բայց բادرազմը շարունակելու է։ Մենք չենք այդ բادرազմը մողողը, բարդաթողը, գիտենք որ թուրքն է, բայց անգլերեն գսեն when you're in it, you're in it։ Եվ հիմա աս չահիջին մեջ կգտնվենք, պետք է ամեն ցևով պայքարել միասնական ուժերով։
Արտասահմանի մեջ ովը փոփոխություն գտեստակ։
Հայաստանի մեջ բոլորին պես ես ալգեհեդևիմ ընդվզումը բարձր է, գարձեմ հավաքույտներ պիտի գազմագերբվին, բայց ոչ խոշոր, որտեվ հիմա բարեդային մտնոլորտ բարեդային ռեժիմ ստեղծված է պետության կողմէ, գարձեմ արդեն Բաղրամյան փողոցը փակ է, ամբես որ գարձեմ լայնածավալ ցույց հավաքներ պիտի չլան ասանկրվանի։
Խոսքս Անտրանիկ արտասահմանի մեջ ովը փոփոխություններ դեղի պիտի ունենան։
Արտասահմանի, այսինքն օդար պետություններու կողմէ։
Ոչ հայության քաղաքային մեր կյանքի մեջ։
Չեմ գիտեմ որ սպյուրքի մասնակցությունը եւ զորակցությունը աննախընթաց էր, աննախադեպ էր, աս վերջին 2 ամսվա ընթացքին։ Իսկապես սպյուրքը եւ նյութապես եւ փարոյապես այսպես զորավոր ոտքի չի ելած։
Բայց Անտրանիկ նույն բանը գսեինք երկրաշարժի ժամանակ, նույն բանը գսեինք ցեղասպանության հարցերու ժամանակ։ Ամեն արիտով գսենք աննախընթաց էր մեր գեցվածքը։ Հետո գմորնանք այդ գեցվածքը։ Ինչ է պատճառը։
Well, կարևոր խնդիր է, կարծեմ սպյուրքը ոտքի ելած է ճգնաժամային բահերու մեջ։ Հիմա պետք է ինքնիս թաստիարակենք, որբեսի ոտքի ելենք ոչ ճգնաժամային պայմաններում։ Այսինքն աս 25 տարվա ընթացքին նույն հրադապ, նույն թեժ մղումով չաշխատեցանք, կարծելով որ պատերազմը վերջացավ, հաղթական դուրս եկանք, now we can relax, ինչպես կսեն։ Ադիգա ցևոմը խապուսիկ մոդեցում էր եւ հիմա դեսանք ադոր։ Կարծեմ հիմա քայլ առ քայլ, քարի վրա տնելով, այլևս պետք է միշտ մտածել, որ պատերազմական վիճակի առջև կգտնվի։
Vartan Asatrian, you're doing the closing statement. How can you wrap it up?
How to wrap it up? I think that a lot of the discourse that we had today was very helpful. There's a lot of unknowns here. I am not pessimistic. Does that sound bizarre to say that?
No,
I think that we have a pause, just like in a sporting event, even though it's much more consequential. We have called a timeout. We need to look at and regroup our priorities. And this is far from over, but I think in the sense that it was necessary. And it's easy for me to say in New Jersey, let's fight to the death. I'm not going to say that on someone else's kid that's 18 years old. But this timeout was necessary. We need to regroup. And I think we will always come back harder and stronger. But there's a lot of housekeeping we need to do. And quite frankly, it's self-reliance, hard power, as Andrei says, I like that. And it's also a degree of, I don't want ever us to talk about Armenians as victims. We are self-reliant people, and we can defend ourselves. We just need to start focusing on that we are alone in the world, and it's us against the world, not in a negative way, but unless we start thinking that we're constantly eternally vigilant, that we're always at war, which could be PTSD, we can never let our guard down. We are God put us there for a reason, and we need to always be vigilant eternally. And we need to get cyber security. We need all types of things where we can defend ourselves. We cannot rely on big brothers, treaties. No one is going to help us. And once we think that's the case, we will be in a far better place. And I think Armenia is going to have to do a lot of rethinking about these things. And I think they should focus more on this. We need to have an enormous amount of military investment. And while other countries are going to lose economically because of their misadventures and so forth, we need to focus every penny, either education, training, military training, or serious weaponry, next generation weaponry, and trust no one but ourselves. And that sounds a little harsh, but look what else could we do? This was almost 1915 all over again. And it was giving me nightmares. But anyway, on a positive note, thank you for having me. Andrei, you're always super helpful.
Thank
And you educate me a lot.
Andrei, we have spoken about the media war. Besides technological war, there is media war going, and I have to congratulate civilnet.am that brought us continuously the developments over the past 24 hours from Armenia, and that too should be something we should improve in the diaspora in terms of the media warfare. We should coordinate our efforts, and that is something I know, Andrei, is very close to your heart, and maybe we will do better in the future. Anything else, Andrei, closing?
No, thank you, Vartan. It's a difficult day for an interview, but we pulled it off. Thank you.
We thank you very much. It's been an honor talking to you, and we hope
Thanks for inviting me.
Better days to discuss better things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.